What if I told you there is a cybersecurity career that doesn't involve coding, hacking, or even a technical degree? When people think about cybersecurity, they immediately think coding or hacking, but that's the tip of the iceberg. Now, if you think GRC, you would be right. However, there is one particular specialization under the umbrella of GRC that most people don't know exists. It's a specialization that relies on communication, empathy, and the psychology of human behavior. This specialization is called security education and awareness, or as some organizations love to refer to as security culture. Security education and awareness is one of the straightforward entry points into cybersecurity. In fact, I know two people who watch this channel who managed to land their first cybersecurity job in the area of security education and awareness. But the problem is, when I was starting out, I didn't even know that this type of job exists. And that's because no one talks about it. Everyone is too busy talking about hacking and coding and network engineering and all of those fancy, attractive things. Therefore, we're gonna do a deep dive into the world of security education and awareness. What does a day in the life of a security awareness professional looks like? How much money can you make? And what type of training and education do you need to get that type of job? That's the kind of practical guide that I wish I had access to when I was starting out, but don't take it from me. This is Chantelle. She not only managed to work as a security education and awareness professional in some of the biggest organizations in Australia, she also has started a business that specializes in security education and awareness. It's a massive area. She is a public speaker and she is the ultimate authority on security education and awareness. So for someone who wants to start a career in cybersecurity, what does a typical day in the life of a security education professional looks like? Like, what are the tasks that you do day to day? Because so many people don't even know what this job entails.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it really does vary depending on the organization that you're working for and how mature their cybersecurity even is. So if we're talking about some different types of roles that you might do in cybersecurity awareness, we can think of things like phishing, for example. So a lot of businesses run phishing simulations, which is basically running a phishing campaign to test staff's knowledge level of phishing. And so that might be running a simple campaign, or it could be running something that's really sophisticated, because we know with AI now that phishing emails are becoming increasingly more sophisticated and we need to equip staff to be able to detect them. So things like phishing. Another one would be there's a lot of collaboration in cybersecurity awareness, which is something that I love about the role, because you get to work with so many different people across cybersecurity and also across the organization more broadly. So working with the cyber threat team, the incident response team, being able to see, okay, what threats are coming in, who within the organization is being targeted more than someone else, and how can we educate those groups of people? So for example, a company I recently did some work for, their chief financial officer was one of the most targeted individuals within the organization. And so being able to run more tailored training for those groups of people. Then on top of that, you've got things like regular comms that we put out. So if we've got, say, the case of Medibank, we put out communications straight away to share with staff on, okay, what can you do if your data's been breached? Because ultimately personal security very strongly links to business security as well.
That's actually really interesting. And just for those who don't know, so Medibank is an organization in Australia that got a massive cyber breach. That was a huge story about it in the news. And look, Chantelle, looks like you worked on the communication related to that cyber attack. Is that true?
Yeah, within the business that I was working for. Yeah.
So the business that you were working for, some of the employees in that business were customers of Medibank.
Yep.
Therefore, you needed to educate them on what to do as a customer. The business you work with has a breach. So that was something you did.
Yep, for sure. A lot of other things, like I ran lots of events to educate staff on cybersecurity. So that's really fun because I love events. Just working out. I think it's also about, which we might talk about later, but it's about understanding staff's awareness levels already and then taking them to that next level, because a lot of people already have a foundational understanding of cybersecurity. I mean, we hear about it every single day in the news. So I think it's about working out, okay, how can we take them to that next level? Things like deep fake scams, for example. I've done a lot of demonstrations for deep fake scams. So working out, how to get staff to that next level. And then another thing would be a lot of role-based training as well. So we talked about how different employees within the organization are different levels of targets. So being able to tailor education to certain groups, for example, the C-suite, which is something that I do a lot of now in my own business.
No, that's really good. I mean, from what you're telling me, there is a lot of training. By training, you mean you are the individual who trains people. Therefore, you need to be able to translate cybersecurity threats that you got from, let's say, the threat team. You translate that to C-level executive, really busy C-level executives, and perhaps employees who may not be technical. So it seems to me that a large chunk of the time is spent understanding threats, understanding what's in the news, and understanding how can that impact the employee, and then you educate them. So I can see a lot of communication involved.
100%.
You're probably talking all day, and it seems to me that it's a job for someone who's a little bit extroverted. Is that a safe assumption?
Oh, that's a good question. I think there's room for every personality type. I think it just depends on the size of the cybersecurity awareness team. So because I've worked for really large companies, we've had about 5 people in cybersecurity awareness. And one of my colleagues was not extroverted at all. And he was very much in charge of the metrics. So because that's another point I should touch on. It's not just about rolling out training and then ticking the box. It's about working out, okay, has that training been effective? Let's look at the metrics. Let's see where we can improve next time. So he wasn't actually an extroverted person.
Yeah. Look, 100%. And I know I wanted to, it's not, I didn't mean it to be a trick question, but to touch on that, it really varies and depends on the size of the organization. I did work with one of the big 4 banks in Australia, and they did have a whole team just under the function, they call it security culture, which is security awareness. And you're right, we had someone who was essentially doing data analysis, just looking at the threats, looking who engages with the threats, analyzing them. And she didn't need to really do a whole lot of communication. But when it comes to training and stuff, it depends. I actually seen both. Like I've seen introverts do really well training people, and I've seen extroverts do really well. And I really love how diverse this is. And back to the beginning of the video, what we said is this is a huge area of cybersecurity that when I talk to people trying to land their first cybersecurity job, they don't even know that this is a job that you can do, which is really exciting. It's not just that one thing. It's not just network engineering. It's a lot broader. And speaking of it being a really niche area within the cybersecurity, everyone wants to know how much money can you make as a security awareness professional. You don't have to share your salary with us, but a common question, I get it out from students, is like, all right, so I'm 17 or I'm 19. This seems like a cool job. How much money can I make? With no context.
Yeah, interesting. I always find that so funny because I think you should never be motivated by how much money you can make. I think you should get into something because you enjoy it, just personally. And even when I fell into cybersecurity and I didn't even think about the money, but money comes and you can make good money in cybersecurity awareness. I was making 6 figures. I don't want to give too much more away, but I was making 6 figures. I think you can make good money if you're good at anything.
100%. This is exactly the answer. And I know every time I have someone on, I corner them with this question because this is one of the most common questions I get. How much money can I make? Okay. So first of all, depends on where you live. If you live in a really small town, remote area, and you're working for a really small organization, your salary naturally will be less than someone who works in a metropolitan city with a massive bank. So it really depends on the organization. Yeah. But as Chantelle said, I have seen salary ranges vary from entry level all the way to 6 figures. And in fact, I know now executives who come from that area. They become chief communication officer or head of security culture. So it can really evolve. But you really hit the nail on the head when you said that if you're good, you're going to get paid. If you're good at something, you'll do well. If you're good at something, if you like it enough to actually be good at something, you will do well. There is no reason why not. And don't be fooled by, all these fancy certifications and hacking and all of that. That's not how businesses work. This is a very important function to the business. It has high visibility. And therefore, if you do well in this area, I think there is a really high upside to working in this area.
For sure. I agree. And I feel like if you're just motivated by money and you don't have a passion for what you're doing, you're not going to work as hard anyway, so you're not going to be able to make as much money. So I would say I don't know, but I've never been driven by money, so maybe that's why. But I would say to just focus on what you enjoy and where your passions lie.
100%. Look, I've gone back and forth on the whole like passion versus money. I think you can do both. Like you can really love something, enjoy something, but at the same time get compensated well.
Yeah.
Especially in cybersecurity, it's one of the highest paid professions out there, and we really get compensated well, especially at the higher levels. So with a few years of experience under your belt, you can do well. You can be passionate about it, and you can also get compensated for it.
Yep.
So speaking of money, I'm not going to ask how much salary can someone make, but if someone is, they don't have a degree, they don't have certification, they just heard about cybersecurity, and part of the thing that I always preach is, try to approach cybersecurity, landing a job in cybersecurity as more of a generalist. Learn everything and get whatever job you can get to get your foot in the door. However, if someone wants to specifically focus on the area of security, education, and awareness, what type of skills do they really need to have? If you're a hiring manager, you're hiring a security awareness professional, what is it that you actually look for? Is it degrees? Is it certifications? Is it coding? Is it network engineering? What exactly makes a good candidate for that type of role?
Yeah, well, I think it's good to touch on degrees here because those are questions that I get frequently as well. I don't have a degree in cybersecurity. My manager at a previous job, she had a degree in psychology. Another colleague of mine came from law enforcement. So I think it's one of the areas within cybersecurity that you don't need a specific degree in a specific field. Yeah, so I think that's good to know.
Degree.
Yeah, a technical degree. As for skills, I would say there are a few things that are really big in what you need to do in this role, and that would be, as you mentioned before, but communication skills. So being a strong communicator, because you do have to liaise with so many different people across the business. And we talked about in cybersecurity, but there's also people in the communications team and the human resources team and the learning and development team. So you need to be able to have strong stakeholder management skills as well. And I would say being organized too, and being able to take initiative, because typically, whilst I mentioned that I was in a team with about 5 people, typically cybersecurity awareness is not that large in an organization. So you might be the only person that is running, maybe not in the early stages, obviously, but eventually you might be the only person that's running the cybersecurity awareness program. So being able to be organized, being able to take initiative, problem solve, think, okay, this training isn't cutting through. What can we do? How can we change? How can we make it better? Yeah.
No, those. I really love this answer because everything you said actually applies to governance, risk, and compliance, broadly speaking. GRC, which really we refer to sometimes as non-technical because you're not actually configuring the tools. I really love this, but I want to also touch on the word communication because it gets mentioned a lot and it can be confusing, especially for someone who's brand new. Now, with communication, what I found is some people think communication is the ability to do public speaking and, be this amazing person with a charisma. That's not exactly communication. Communication is like good reading and writing skills in English, especially maybe if English is your second language. So having really strong skills on how to write using the business language, the risk management language, as Chantelle said, understanding what other teams do. But also when you said stakeholder management, to me, when I'm interviewing for this person, if someone is about to do this job and they will need to train other people, for me, stakeholder management usually is personality and maturity. Like we want someone who can talk, someone who is, as you said, organized. And that's, I think, is a huge, huge skill. Now, touching on degrees, because this one confuses people. With cybersecurity, so many people get in without degrees. It's not a hard requirement. Some people get in and even they decide to do an online degree later on. That's perfectly fine. But I haven't found it to be a hurdle because nothing you learn in the degree actually translate to the job, sadly. However, I did see the security awareness area attracts people with interest in psychology, in human behavior, even criminology. I interviewed a candidate recently who she had a degree in criminology and she was really fascinated about cybersecurity. I think it's a great entry point. Now, I said 2 people on my channel actually landed that role. In fact, none of them have degrees at all. One comes from a background of electrician. So I think he did the Google Cybersecurity Cert as a broad introduction and then GRC Mastery. We actually have an entire module about security education and awareness with a practical assessment and practical case study where you get to audit a company that have that, and that actually enabled him to land the job. So The point is, don't get too hung up on having the best qualifications before you start apply. Apply to those jobs, and like we said earlier, many people don't even know this job exists, and therefore they don't even bother applying. And I see job openings for security awareness, and I actually don't see a lot of candidates applying. Now, speaking of things you need to learn as an aspiring cybersecurity professional, understanding what a VPN is and why we need to use it is a non-negotiable for any cybersecurity professional. But the good news is I managed to get one of the best and most popular VPN providers in the world to not only sponsor this video, but give us an exclusive deal to try the fastest VPN on the planet, NordVPN. Now, using a VPN is the easiest way to be safer online with one click, especially if you're privacy oriented like me. With NordVPN, your traffic is protected with strong encryption algorithms. And being backed by a big company, you get 24/7 support and you get dedicated apps on all the platforms. I personally use NordVPN on my phone because of convenience. The feature that most people don't even know about, and it's the most important feature for me as a cybersecurity professional, is Threat Protect Pro. It's an advanced lightweight antivirus that's integrated within NordVPN. It's very effective in protecting against things like malware and phishing. In fact, this tool ranked third in AV comparatives fake shop detection because of how effective it is in protecting against scams, especially when you do online shopping. And finally, my absolute favorite feature is Dark Web Monitor. NordVPN's Dark Web Monitor continuously scans discovered hacker hangouts and immediately alerts you if your details are up for sale online. This way you can change any compromised detail before any damage is done. Best of all, you get exclusive NordVPN deal plus 4 months extra. Check it out at nordvpn.com/unixguy, and it's a risk-free with Nord's 30 days money-back guarantee. Terms and conditions apply, and back to the video. So Chantelle, can you tell me if someone is watching this video and they want to start their first step towards a career in security education awareness? We know that there are some certifications, let's say the Google Cyber Cert and let's say GRC Mastery, but other than that, like, is there something you recommend for someone to, let's say, volunteer or get active in order to be recognized in this community, in order perhaps to help them get their foot in the door?
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Well, I think networking is so critical to getting your foot in the door. So I would say, I guess, two answers to this question. The first would be staying on top of the latest threats and really understanding what's going on in the industry today, because it does change so rapidly. And the second would be, there are so many different cybersecurity, I don't know what the right word is, like cybersecurity groups, or there's the Women in Security Network and those sorts of committees. So you can volunteer to be a part of them, help organize events, or even just attend the events that they organize and really expand your network. And events like B-Sides, which you vlogged last year, which was cool to see. And I go to a lot of those events as well. So I have to say, really getting out there and meeting people, because then in the future, when something becomes available, they might be like, oh, I met that person who would be really great for this role and I know they're passionate about it. So I would have to say just put effort in to meet people in real life and try to expand your network and learn what's going on today.
Yeah, definitely. Like you are speaking my language. In fact, speaking of B-Sides, there is a few people in my Discord server in the US, not in Australia. They got their first job by going to B-Side conferences.
Wow.
Yeah, they meet people over there and they get hired. Now,
well, that's how we met.
Yeah, and
we met at B-Sides.
We met at B-Sides, absolutely. Actually, I made a lot of friends in B-Sides recently. It's such a good conference. B-Side, there's a B-Side conference in almost every city in the world. So just type on Google B-Side and the name of the city or B-Sides near me, and you'll get probably a list of B-Side conferences you can go for.
And can I add something there?
Yeah.
I was going to say as well, get outside of your comfort zone and go up to someone and introduce yourself, because that's what I did. I just walked up to Abid and I said, I watch your YouTube videos. So cool to meet you. And I always think to myself, even when I'm nervous about doing something, I think, how am I going to feel later if I don't do this? So even when you go to those events and you're outside of your comfort zone, try to go up to people and introduce yourself.
100%. Really great idea. And look, I'm not gonna lie, I have actually a difficult time introducing myself to people. So we all struggle with it to some point.
Sure.
I don't think it's an easy thing to do. But like, even with B-Sides, everyone is usually really nice, and like there is nothing to be afraid of. And as far as the cost, it's B-sides is usually on the cheap side of conferences, so it doesn't
Yeah.
cost you much. But even if you think you don't want to pay, a really great way to do it is by volunteering. There are so many students I see volunteering at cyber conferences. It's a great way to make friends, meet people because you volunteer together, but also you get to attend the event and learn. B-sides, I think, is a fantastic conference to attend. I really like what you said about cyber threats, but I think it can be a double-edged weapon. I do find people obsess about looking at the latest threats, so much so that I check on them 2 weeks later, and all they think about is the CIA and the FBI and the hacking groups. I'm like, just calm down. I guess there is a fine line between
Yeah.
going too deep into that rabbit hole and just understanding that, oh, okay, so we've got phishing attacks. Maybe the country or the city that I'm living in have some companies that got hacked, so I need to know about it. Just get an idea, but just how how deep down the rabbit holes should someone go with like latest
Yeah.
threats and hacks? Because people tend to obsess, and I
Yeah.
think it's actually a waste of time going that deep. But what's
Yeah.
your opinion? I'm really curious.
That's a good point. I would have to say, I think it's all about practical application more than theory. So I know a lot of people as well who I met someone last year at a conference, and she was trying to get into cybersecurity, and she had a list of certifications that she wanted to complete before she even started applying.
Great.
And I would say that's the same as doing all this research. You can research for months and months and months and you'll never feel ready. So I think you always do everything before you're ready, and you still have to take that leap of faith. And it's not about knowing everything and knowing it to the greatest degree. It's just about, I guess I'm also mean it about having a level of understanding and not letting that stop you from applying for jobs and going and doing things. Yeah.
Really great point. I always advocate that, and I'm gonna really hold everyone who's watching this video accountable, because the reason why people don't apply is they don't want to be rejected. I get that every day. Is like the question really along the lines of, I want to be this amazing candidate that no one will ever reject. I want to apply to 100 jobs. I want all of them to love me so much and really be impressed by me, and all of them hire me and give me so. Like, the world doesn't work that way. If I apply to 10 jobs today, I will get rejected by most of them. It's just a numbers game.
Yeah.
However, what you said is that there is actually, it's a little bit more sinister than people understand, because there is statistics and research about how women and minorities are less likely to apply to a job they don't meet the requirements for. For example, when you see a job asking for 10 things, my rule is if you meet one or two of these requirements, apply. In fact, just apply anyway. Let them reject you. Like, don't reject yourself right away. But I've met so many women and minorities who feel that they must meet every requirement out there before they even hit the apply button. And I think it's a bad idea. Know a little bit about threats, start your learning journey, but you need to apply to jobs. You need to put yourself out there. And the worst thing someone can do is just say no. The big deal. Like, no one cares. As hiring managers and as companies, when someone apply and we reject them, we don't just, fixate on them, and 10 years later we're like, this person applied, I'm gonna hold them back. And that doesn't work that way. I think just people overthink these things and they are afraid of rejection. It is my understanding. Do you feel like that's something that you may struggled with, or do you know
100%.
people struggle with?
Yes, yes. I was the exact same way. And I think it wasn't until a few roles in that I realized I wasn't doing anything on the job description anyway. So I'm of the mentality now, I believe that you can learn any skill. You can learn anything once you're in there. And the job description isn't always going to be a reflection of what your role even is. So as long as you have a willingness to learn and you apply for it, and they see that you're the right candidate, that there's nothing you can't learn once you're in there. That's my opinion. So I would agree, just apply regardless, and everyone gets rejected. It's part of life.
So if you want to get a job, you're going to have to go through that. Like,
And I believe everything happens for a reason as well.
100%. Now, a lot of people are interested to know your journey. How did you get into cybersecurity?
Yeah. Well, I was actually working at one of Australia's largest banks, and I was in...
Sorry, I'll interrupt you.
Yeah.
You can totally go to Chantelle's LinkedIn profile and find out those names. So I'm going to leave links to her LinkedIn profile, Instagram, business, YouTube channel, everything. Make sure you follow her everywhere.
Thank you.
We will know where you work.
Yeah, I know. It's not very subtle. No, I was working in a technical role in financial markets, actually. So not even in cybersecurity.
Like a financially technical role, like finance type thing.
We were we were working on a project for sales dealers. Yeah. So they buy and sell foreign exchange. We were uplifting their technology. So it was in technology, but for financial markets, which is unrelated to cybersecurity. And I just did not like the role, but I loved my manager. So I think that makes a huge difference. Yeah. And my sister was working in cybersecurity at the time. And I said, technology is not for me. I don't like this role. Technology must not be for me. And she said, no, there's this role called cybersecurity awareness. And she's like, I think you'd love it because it's still in technology, but it requires creativity and communication and stakeholder management and all those sorts of things. So I think you'd really like it. So there was a job opening at the company I was working for, and I applied and I got that role, and I was able to work. I was able to really move quite easily because I was already in the company, which I would say is another piece of advice. Is it's so much easier to move once you're in a business. So take any opportunity that you can, because if it weren't for my sister even suggesting that I move into that direction, I don't know where I'd be.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'd be. So that's how I got my foot in the door. And then from there, I just moved to other companies and did it at a few other large corporations. Yeah.
It's a really interesting story, and I really love that. If you were afraid of rejection, you probably would not have even applied. Like, oh my God, that's cybersecurity. I don't have the skill. And in fact, one of my really close friends now who watches this channel, I'm not going to say his name, you actually met him last year at Cyber Conference. He works at one of the universities.
Oh,
his background is digital marketing. And because of his skills in like graphic design, he got hired in security awareness because now he does like all of their articles, SharePoint, educational graphics and infographics. So that can be an entry. However, since he started that role, he's been learning nonstop. There are platforms now you can learn from. There are so many accessible things that you can do to learn. Now, what I'm really interested in is what you do at the moment, because you have started a cybersecurity business, and so many people, especially young people, are interested in being entrepreneurs. They want to do their business. They haven't maybe started working in cybersecurity. They don't have the knowledge, but something for the future for someone who aspire to run a cybersecurity business. Yours is very specialized in security awareness. So can you tell us what is it like to start and be an entrepreneur and have your own business in cybersecurity?
Yeah, it's amazing. I love what I'm doing. It's really hard, really hard. Starting a business is really hard, and nothing happens overnight. Like I remember last year when I first started, I had friends who'd be like, wow, you must be killing it by now. And it had been 3 months in, and I thought, far from killing it. Absolutely not.
Me.
Yeah, it's killing me. Yeah, no, well, I guess because I've done this for large companies, so I knew that there was a gap for smaller businesses. And so with what I do in my company, I try to bring that best practice cybersecurity training to a broader range of businesses who can't afford a cybersecurity awareness practitioner or who just don't even know what to do in this space. So that's what I'm doing. I do training. I build out programs for them. I like to train the C-suite, board of directors, those sorts of employees within the organization. And as for starting a business, I would say it's hard, it's slow, but it's really rewarding.
Yeah. I love that quotation. Someone told me, I'll quit my 9 to 5. So now I work 24 by 7 and I make less money, but I'm happy. I'm like, good for you.
Yeah, I know.
It's definitely something top of the mind for so many people. And look, I think you're doing a great job. I think one of the things that Chantelle didn't say is that she also is very active in the community. You do stuff with vendors. So with those type of skills, it opens so many doors. Lots of companies, like big companies, let's say Cisco or Google, or on these companies, they want individuals to represent them, to talk about their brand. So if you have that cybersecurity understanding and you're good at presentation, I think there is a massive opportunity in that.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. Yeah. I think it's just all about meeting the right people. So it goes back to that piece of getting involved, networking, building your personal brand as well.
100%. Yeah. And if you're someone who's watching this video, you're inspired to learn this type of work. So I highly recommend you check this video out, and I'll see you there.